Captain Taman stared at the red warning lights flashing across his ship's control panel. Each blink meant another system failing, another repair he couldn't afford. The broken wing wheezed and groaned around him like an old man climbing stairs. She had been his home for 8 years, but now she was more rust than metal. "Come on, girl," he whispered, patting the worn console. "Just a little longer." Outside his small window, Nexus Station hung in space like a dirty metal ring. It was the kind of place honest traders avoided and desperate ones called home. Timon had been coming here for months, taking whatever jobs he could find. Most paid barely enough for fuel. Some didn't pay at all. His stomach growled. When had he last eaten? Yesterday? 2 days ago? Time blurred together when you lived on protein bars and recycled water. He checked his credit account and winced. 43 credits left. Not enough for fuel, food, or the repair parts his ship desperately needed. A message beeped on his comm system. Taman's heart sank as he read it. His creditors wanted their money. They gave him 3 days to pay or they would take his ship. Without the broken wing, he was nothing. Just another failed human in a galaxy that barely noticed his kind existed. He sealed his worn jacket and headed for the station's marketplace. Maybe someone needed cargo moved. Maybe he could find work before his time ran out. The docking bay smelled of oil, ozone, and too many different species living too close together. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved through the crowded space, speaking in languages that hurt his ears. Most ignored him completely. Humans were common in this part of space, usually working the worst jobs for the lowest pay. A few merchants looked at his shabby clothes and turned away. Who would trust important cargo to someone who looked like he couldn't afford his next meal? Taemin walked deeper into the station, past shops selling questionable food and even more questionable services. The crowds got rougher the further he went from the respectable areas. This was where the real business happened, the kind of business the authorities pretended not to see. He found himself in the slave market without meaning to. The sight made his stomach turn, but he couldn't afford moral luxury right now. These people bought and sold lives like he once traded in machine parts. Maybe they needed transport. Maybe they paid in cash. "Fresh stock today, human," called a voice behind him. Taemin turned to see a Kralix merchant, his forearms gesturing at a line of cages. Inside, beings from a dozen different worlds sat in misery. Some looked broken, others burned with quiet rage. All wore the metal collars that marked them as property. "Not interested," Taemin said, starting to walk away. Wait. I have something special. Something perfect for a cargo hauler like you." The merchant led him to a larger cage in the back. Inside sat the biggest person Taemin had ever seen. She had to be 9 feet tall, with arms like tree trunks and hands that could crush, his head like an egg. Her skin was pale gray, marked with darker patterns that might have been tattoos or natural coloring. Her hair fell in thick black ropes down her back, but her eyes caught his attention most. They were bright green and completely aware. Most slaves he had seen looked dead inside. This one watched everything with sharp intelligence. "Gorlani," the merchant said. "Titan class, strong as a cargo mover, tough as ship armor. She could carry 50 crates without breaking a sweat." "What's wrong with her?" Taemin asked. In his experience, if something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. The merchant's face soured. "Defective, too smart, thinks too much. Last 3 owners brought her back. Won't follow simple orders, asks too many questions. But for cargo work, she would be perfect. All you need is someone to carry heavy things, right?" Taemin studied the giant woman. She stared back without fear, as if measuring him the same way he measured her. Something about her reminded him of his ship. Broken, maybe, but not beaten. "How much?" he asked. "For you, special price. 1,500 credits. Taemin laughed bitterly. "I don't have 1,500 credits. I don't have 15 credits. Then what do you have?" Taemin thought about his cargo hold. It was full of things he had collected over the years but never sold. Earth electronics that didn't work with alien systems, computer parts that were too old for modern networks, gadgets and devices that seemed useful but had no market value out here. "Junk," he said honestly. I have a lot of junk. The merchant's eyes lit up with greed. Show me this junk. They walked back to the broken wing together. Taemin opened his cargo hold and watched the merchant's face fall. Boxes of old Earth technology filled the space. Cell phones with cracked screens, broken laptops, gaming systems that were outdated before he left Earth. Wires, circuits, batteries, and pieces of things he had forgotten the names of. This is garbage, the merchant said. I told you it was junk, but the Kralix was already calculating. Some of these metals, rare alloys, might be worth something to the right buyer. He picked up an old tablet computer, turning it over in his hands. Primitive, but the processing core uses pure quantum crystals. 20 minutes later, Taemin owned his first crew member. All his junk was gone, traded for a 9-foot-tall woman who might or might not be willing to work for him. The merchant even threw in the universal translator collar, though he warned it might not work perfectly with Gorlani languages. Back on his ship, Taemin stared at his new crew member. She sat in his cargo hold, still wearing the slave collar, still watching him with those intelligent green eyes. She was so big he worried she might not fit through the doorways to the rest of the ship. So, he said awkwardly, I'm Taemin. This is my ship, the Broken Wing. I guess we're partners now. She tilted her head and spoke in a voice like distant thunder. The translator collar crackled and produced choppy words. Name, Varaka. Why, you buy broken slave? Because I'm a broken captain with a broken ship, he said. Maybe we can figure it out together. For the first time since he had seen her, something that might have been a smile crossed her face. It wasn't much, but it was hope. And hope was more than either of them had possessed an hour ago. 3 days after leaving Nexus Station, Taemin realized he had made a terrible mistake. Varaka barely fit in his ship. She had to duck through doorways and couldn't stand straight in most rooms. She slept curled up in the cargo hold because nowhere else was big enough. Worse, she wouldn't talk to him. The universal translator worked, but she only gave short answers. Yes. No. Do not know. When he asked her to help with simple tasks, she did them perfectly, but without any interest. She moved cargo crates, like they weighed nothing, fixed a loose panel with her bare hands, and ate her food rations in complete silence. Taemin tried to be patient. She had been a slave for who knew how long. Trust would take time. But his ship was falling apart faster than he could fix it, and he needed help. Real help, not just someone to lift heavy things. On the 4th day, everything went wrong at once. Taemin woke to the sound of alarms. Red lights flashed in his tiny cabin as the ship's computer announced the bad news in its calm, mechanical voice. Life support failure. Oxygen recycling offline. Estimated breathable air remaining. 4 hours, 12 minutes. He stumbled to the engine room, still half asleep. The main recycling unit had finally given up after years of patch jobs and prayers. Green coolant leaked across the floor, and the air already tasted stale. Without this system working, they would suffocate long before they reached the nearest station. Not today, Taemin muttered, grabbing his toolbox. Not like this. He had been fixing this ship for 8 years. Every wire, every circuit, every bolt was familiar to him. But the recycling unit needed parts he didn't have and couldn't afford. Standard parts made by big corporations for big ships with big budgets. That was when he remembered the junk. Before trading it all away, he had kept a few things. Personal items mostly, stuff that reminded him of Earth. An old smartphone that still worked sometimes. A gaming console from his teenage years. Broken headphones, dead batteries, and a portable radio that picked up nothing but static out here. Earth. Technology was primitive compared to alien systems. It used different power sources, different materials, different ways of thinking about problems. But maybe that was exactly what he needed. Taemin pulled apart the smartphone first. Inside was a maze of tiny circuits and processors, all designed to do 100 different jobs at once. He found the environmental sensors that had once told him the weather back on Earth. With some rewiring, they could monitor air quality instead. The gaming console was trickier. It had powerful processors designed to create imaginary worlds, but Tae-min saw different possibilities. He connected it to the ship's diagnostic system and watched it start mapping every air leak, every temperature change, every tiny detail about the ship's environment. The hardest part was making it all work together. Alien technology expected everything to be perfect, standardized, predictable. Human technology was designed to be flexible, to adapt to whatever crazy situation humans found themselves in. Making them talk to each other required creativity more than skill. That was where Varaka surprised him. He was lying on his back under the main console, trying to connect a smartphone battery to the ship's power grid when huge gray hands appeared beside his head. Varaka had squeezed herself into the narrow space somehow, her green eyes studying his work with intense focus. "This is wrong," she said through the translator. "I know it looks weird, but not weird. Wrong direction. Current flows backward." Tae-min looked at the wires he had been fighting with for an hour. She was right. Completely right. "How did you know that?" Instead of answering, she took the smartphone from his hands. Her massive fingers moved with surprising delicacy, finding connections he had missed. Within minutes, she had the battery integrated into the ship's power system like it belonged there. "You know about electronics?" he asked. Her face went carefully blank. "Slaves do not need to know about electronics. But you do know." A long pause. Then quietly, "Yes." They worked together for the next 2 hours. Varaka's knowledge filled gaps in his understanding while his creativity showed her new ways to use familiar technology. The old gaming console became the brain of a new environmental system. Smartphone sensors monitored air quality in real time. Even his broken headphones found new life, their copper wires becoming connections between systems that had never been meant to work together. When they finished, the air recycling system was running better than it had in years. It was also completely unrecognizable. Instead of one large unit, they had created a network of smaller systems spread throughout the ship. Each one used different technology, but they all worked together like instruments in an orchestra. "Amazing," Tae-min said, breathing clean air for the first time in days. "Where did you learn to do that?" Varaka sat back on her heels, too tall, to stand in the engine room. For a moment, her careful mask slipped and he saw something like pain in her green eyes. "My people build great machines," she said slowly. "Factories that eat planets, weapons that crack stars. We are born to work with metal and energy, but we are not supposed to think about how things work. Only that they work." "But you thought about it anyway." "Yes, this was my crime. I asked questions. Why does this work? How could it work better? What if we tried something new?" She touched one of the jury-rigged connections with gentle fingers. "My builders said I was broken. That thinking too much made me weak." Tae-min looked around at their improvised repairs, at systems that shouldn't exist but worked perfectly anyway. They were wrong. Were they? I was sold as a slave. You traded garbage for me because no one else wanted me. I traded that stuff because I saw something worth more than credits. He met her eyes directly. I saw someone who could help me save my ship and my life. Varaka was quiet for a long time. Then she said something in her own language, words too complex for the translator to handle. But her tone was clear enough. It sounded like a question. "What did you say?" I asked. "If you would teach me more about human machines. And if..." She hesitated. "If I could choose a new name, Varaka is a slave name. It means strong back, empty head in my language." Tae-min smiled. "What name do you want?" She thought about it while they cleaned up their tools. Finally, she said, "Dayun. It is a human name I heard once. The trader who sold me said it meant great kindness." "Dayun," Tae-min repeated. "I like it. Welcome to the crew, Dayun. Now, let me show you what else we can do with a microwave oven and some spare wire." For the first time since boarding his ship, Da-un laughed. The sound was like distant thunder but warm instead of threatening. And in that moment, Tae-min knew they were going to be just fine. 2 weeks later, Da-un had transformed the broken wing into something Taemin barely recognized. Every day brought new improvements. She found ways to make old systems work better, and he showed her how human technology could solve problems no one else had thought of. They made a good team. Da-un's engineering knowledge combined with Taemin's scrappy creativity produced solutions that shouldn't work, but did. The ship ran smoother, used less fuel, and actually felt like a home instead of just a machine for getting from one place to another. They were hauling medical supplies to a mining colony when the pirates found them. 3 ships closing fast, Taemin announced, watching his scanner screens. They're not answering hails and they're moving like they want to fight. Da-un squeezed into the cockpit beside him, her presence somehow comforting despite taking up most of the available space. She studied the tactical display with the same focused intensity she brought to fixing broken circuits. Small fighters, she said. Fast but lightly armed. They expect us to surrender quickly. That's what most cargo haulers do. We're not built for fighting. Taemin's hands moved over the controls, trying to squeeze more speed from his overworked engines. If we can reach the asteroid field, maybe we can hide until they give up. Or, Da-un said quietly, we could surprise them. Taemin looked at her. What do you mean? Instead of answering, she pointed to their improvised repairs throughout the ship. Smartphone cameras they had installed to monitor cargo. Gaming controllers repurposed as manual overrides. Even the old microwave oven they had turned into an electromagnetic pulse generator for clearing stuck relays. You're human machines, she said. They are made to do many different things, yes? Not just one purpose like alien technology. Understanding hit him like lightning. You want to turn repair equipment into weapons, not weapons, surprises. The first pirate ship fired across their bow, a warning shot that lit up space with blue energy. A voice crackled over the radio in accented universal standard. Cargo ship, cut engines and prepare to be boarded. Make this easy, and no one gets hurt. Tell them we're complying, Da-un said, but slowly. Taemin opened a channel. Understood, pirate vessel. Cutting engines now, please don't shoot. We have valuable medical supplies aboard. Medical supplies? The pirate sounded interested. Even better, bring your ship to a complete stop and open your cargo bay. While Taemin stalled with fake engine troubles, Da-un moved through the ship with surprising quiet for someone so large. Their improvised systems had been designed for maintenance and efficiency, but she began connecting them in new ways. Smartphone cameras became targeting sensors. Gaming controllers linked to the ship's maneuvering thrusters became drone pilots. The electromagnetic pulse generator got connected to the main power grid. They're moving to board us, Taemin reported. 2 ships docking, 1 staying back to watch. Perfect, Da-un said. Are you ready to do something very stupid? I've been doing stupid things my whole life. What's one more? The pirates docked with loud metallic clangs that echoed through the ship. Taemin and Da-un waited in the engine. Rooms surrounded by their jury-rigged equipment. He could hear boots in the corridors, voices calling out in languages he didn't recognize. Cargo hold is full of medical gear, someone shouted. This is a good haul. Find the crew, another voice ordered. Make sure they're not hiding anything valuable. The first pirate to enter the engine room stopped dead when he saw Da-un. She stood 8 feet tall in the cramped space, her gray skin seeming to absorb the harsh work lights. The pirate raised his weapon with shaking hands. Don't move, Giant. Where's the ship's captain? Right here, Taemin said, stepping out from behind a support beam. The pirate swung his gun toward the human. On your knees, both of you. That was when Da-un pressed the button. Every screen in the ship flickered to life at once. The smartphone cameras they had installed throughout the broken wing began tracking every pirate, feeding information to gaming controllers that had been reprogrammed to control maintenance drones. But these weren't ordinary maintenance drones anymore. The cleaning robot from the galley rolled down the corridor with its scrubbing brushes spinning, but Da-un had mounted a sonic emitter from the entertainment system on top. The high-pitched whine made the pirates grab their heads in pain. Motion sensors from old Earth gaming systems tracked the intruders and activated improvised defense systems throughout the ship. Lights strobed in patterns designed to cause disorientation. Speakers played random sound files at maximum volume, creating chaos and confusion. But the best part was the microwave oven. Da-Yun had disconnected its safety systems and overcharged its magnetron tube. When she triggered it remotely, it sent out an electromagnetic pulse that fried every piece of pirate electronics within 50 feet. Their weapons went dead. Their communication systems failed. Even their environmental suits stopped working properly. The pirates stumbled through the ship, blind and confused, while Taemin and Da-Un watched everything on their improvised security network. It was like playing a video game, except the players were real and very unhappy. "Engine room secure," Da-Un announced, zip-tying the unconscious pirate at their feet. 3 more in the cargo bay, 2 in the corridors. "The ship watching us is getting nervous," Taemin reported, monitoring radio traffic. "They're trying to contact their boarding party. Let them try. Their equipment will not work for another 10 minutes. It took 8 minutes to secure all the pirates. The cleaning robot had done most of the work, its sonic emitter leaving the intruders too dizzy to fight back. Those who tried to flee ran into motion-activated defense systems that herded them like sheep toward the cargo bay, where Da-Un was waiting with improvised restraints. The 3rd pirate ship finally got suspicious and tried to disengage from the broken wing. That was when Taemin discovered that their jury-rigged systems could do more than just defend. "Kenkiao, you overload their docking clamps?" he asked. Da-Un's hands flew over their improvised controls. "Yes, but we will take damage too." "Do it." The electromagnetic pulse from their modified microwave oven hit the 3rd pirate ship at point-blank range. Every system on both vessels flickered and sparked. The Broken Wing's hybrid human-alien technology recovered within seconds, but the pirates' standardized equipment stayed dead. When the 3rd ship tried to flee with dead engines, Taemin had one more surprise. Their gaming console wasn't just running environmental systems anymore. Da-Yun had connected it to the navigation array, turning it into a targeting computer for the ship's emergency flares. "Warning shots across their bow," Taemin announced, firing pyrotechnic signals that lit up space with brilliant colors. "Just to make sure they remember us." The pirate ship limped away on backup power, leaving their comrades behind. Later, after they had delivered their prisoners to the nearest station and collected the bounty, Taemin and Da-Un sat in the cockpit, sharing a bottle of real earth whiskey he had been saving for a special occasion. "That was the stupidest plan I've ever been part of," he said, grinning. "It worked," Da-Un pointed out. "It shouldn't have worked. We turned cleaning robots into weapons and used a microwave oven as a cannon." "Human technology is very flexible," she said. "Like humans. You see a tool, you think of 10 different ways to use it." Taemin looked around at their ship. No longer just a cargo hauler, but something entirely new. Word would spread about this fight. Other pirates would hear about the strange human ship that defended itself with improvised weapons and impossible technology. "I think we're going to need a bigger crew," he said. Da-Un raised her glass in agreement. "To the Broken Wing," she said. "May she never be truly fixed." They drank to that, watching the stars wheel by outside their small window, both wondering what impossible thing they would build next. Word traveled fast in the Outer Rim territories. Within a month, everyone had heard about the cargo hauler that fought off 3 pirate ships using cleaning robots and kitchen appliances. Some called it impossible. Others called it brilliant. The pirates just called it cursed and gave the Broken Wing a wide berth. Taemin found this both helpful and problematic. Helpful because pirates avoided them. Problematic because everyone else wanted to know how they had done it. He was refueling at Border Station when the first potential crew member approached him. "Captain Taemin." The voice belonged to a tall, thin human with graying hair and nervous eyes. "My name is Kyung-ho. I used to navigate for Stellar Transport, until I refused to haul a cargo of Raxian children to the slave markets. They blacklisted me across the entire sector." "I'm sorry to hear that," Taemin said carefully. He was getting better at reading people, and this man had the desperate look of someone with nowhere else to turn. "I heard about your fight with the pirates, about how you and your Gorlani partner turned junk into weapons." Kyung-ho's voice dropped to a whisper. "I have navigation skills you need, and I know where to find the kind of supplies corporations throw away, the valuable kind." That evening, Taemin discussed it with Da-Un while she worked on their latest project. She was trying to turn an old Earth satellite dish into a more sensitive sensor array. her massive hands somehow delicate enough to work, with hair-thin wires. "He seems honest," she said without looking up from her work. "And we do need a navigator. I can calculate jumps, but not efficiently. It's not about navigation skills. If we take him on, we're not just a cargo hauler anymore. We're becoming something else." "What kind of something else?" Taemin thought about it. "A haven for people the galaxy threw away, like us." Da-eun smiled at that. "I like this idea." Kyung-ho joined them the next day, along with his collection of salvaged star charts and his knowledge of which shipping routes the corporations ignored. He also brought news about 2 other potential crew members. Mi-jin was a half-human engineer whose mixed heritage made her unwelcome in both human and alien space. She had been living on border station, fixing other people's ships for barely enough credits to survive. When she heard about their improvised repairs, she begged for a chance to see their work. She studied their jury-rigged systems with the intensity of a scholar examining ancient texts. "This is beautiful," she whispered, tracing the connections between smartphone sensors and alien environmental controls. "Chaotic, impossible, but beautiful." "Want to help us make it more impossible?" Taemin offered. More than anything, Jae-sung was harder to convince. The former corporate programmer had discovered his company was using their navigation software to coordinate slave raids. When he tried to expose them, they framed him for embezzlement and put a bounty on his head. Now he lived in the shadows, using his skills to help other outcasts disappear when necessary. "I don't join crews," he said when they first met. "I don't trust anyone, and no one should trust me." "Fair enough," Taemin replied, "but we could use someone who understands corporate security systems, and you could use somewhere safe to work." "Nowhere is safe. They have long memories and longer reach." "Then help us build something they can't reach." It took 3 weeks, but eventually, Jae-sung came aboard. Not as crew, he insisted, but as a consultant, someone who happened to live on their ship and help with their computer systems in exchange for protection and regular meals. With 4 humans and 1 Gorlani working together, the Broken Wing transformed faster than ever. Mi-jin's engineering expertise combined with Da-eun's alien perspective to create solutions that amazed even Taemin. Kyung-ho's navigation skills opened up new possibilities for where they could go and what they could carry. Jae-sung's programming knowledge helped them integrate systems that had never been designed to work together. But the real breakthrough came when Da-eun shared something she had been hiding. "I have been thinking about our electromagnetic pulse weapon," she said one evening as they worked in the engine room. "The microwave oven works, but it is crude, dangerous to our own systems." "Do you have a better idea?" Taemin asked. Instead of answering, she pulled out a device he had never seen before. It was clearly Gorlani technology, all flowing curves and crystalline structures, but small enough to fit in her massive hands. "I took this when my people exiled me," she said quietly. "It is a resonance modulator used in our largest construction projects. It can tune electromagnetic fields with perfect precision." Mi-jin's eyes went wide. "That's impossible. Resonance modulators are theoretical. No one has ever built a working one." "My people build many impossible things," Da-eun replied. "But we never think to combine them with human creativity." Over the next week, they integrated the modulator into their improvised weapons system. The result was beyond anything they had imagined. Instead of a crude electromagnetic pulse, they now had precise control over every electronic system within range. They could disable enemy weapons while leaving their own untouched, scramble navigation computers without affecting life support, even hack into secure networks by modulating the carrier frequencies. "We need to test this carefully," Mi-jin warned. "This kind of power could be dangerous." They got their chance sooner than expected. A distress call reached them while they were hauling construction materials to a mining colony. A passenger liner was under attack by a pirate fleet, too far from any military vessels to hope for rescue. Normally, a single cargo hauler would be worse than useless against multiple pirate ships, but the Broken Wing was no longer a normal cargo hauler. 6 pirate vessels, Kyung-ho reported as they dropped out of hyperspace near the battle. "They have the liner surrounded. hundreds of civilians aboard. "Can we take them?" Taemin asked. Da-un studied the tactical display. "With the resonance modulator, we can do more than take them. We can capture them." The plan was typically insane. Instead of attacking the pirates directly, they would use their hybrid technology to turn the pirates' own ships against each other. Jae-sung's hacking skills would identify weaknesses in their computer systems. Da-un's modulator would exploit those weaknesses. Mi-jin's engineering knowledge would keep their own systems protected during the electronic warfare. "This is either brilliant or suicidal," Kyung-ho muttered as they approached the battle. "Why not both?" Taemin replied. The first indication that something was wrong came when the lead pirate ship's weapon stopped working. The second came when that same ship began broadcasting surrender codes on all frequencies. By the time the pirates realized they were under attack, 3 of their vessels had been compromised. The broken wing moved through the battle like a ghost, her sensors invisible to normal detection, while her weapons reached out through electromagnetic, space-to-touch enemy systems. Gaming controllers guided precision strikes. Smartphone apps monitored the health of hijacked systems. Even old Earth music players contributed, their audio processing power helping to decode encrypted pirate communications. In 15 minutes, it was over. 6 pirate ships hung dead in space, their crews alive but helpless as their own vessels refused to obey orders. The passenger liner was safe and the broken wing had barely fired a shot. "How?" the liner's captain asked over the radio. "How did you do that?" "Human ingenuity," Taemin replied. "And very good friends." Later, as they watched the rescued civilians transfer to a safety escort, Da-un asked him a question that had been bothering her. "Are we still cargo haulers?" Taemin looked around at their improvised fortress, at the crew of misfits who had become his family, at the impossible technology they had built together. "No," he said finally. "I think we're something new entirely." The galaxy was beginning to take notice of the strange human ship and her hybrid crew. Some saw them as heroes, others saw them as a threat to the established order. But everyone agreed on one thing. The broken wing and her people were unlike anything space had ever seen, and they were just getting started. The message arrived on a secure channel while they were resupplying at Haven Station. Taemin recognized the seal immediately, the Galactic Trade Hegemony, the corrupt organization that controlled most commerce in this part of space. Their backing kept the slave markets open and the pirates protected, as long as everyone paid their bribes. "Captain Taemin of the vessel Broken Wing," the message began in the cold, formal tone of official documents. "You and your crew are hereby ordered to report to Hegemony Station for questioning regarding illegal weapons technology and unsanctioned military activities. Failure to comply will result in your classification as pirates and the deployment of appropriate force." "They're scared," Jae-sung said after reading the full message. His fingers danced over the computer systems, analyzing the transmission. This came from Admiral Voss himself. He doesn't usually handle small problems personally. Da-un looked up from the weapon system she was calibrating. "How scared?" "Scared enough to send the 5th Fleet after us. 12 heavy cruisers, 46 support vessels, and a battle station capable of cracking planets." Mi-jin whistled softly. "They're not taking chances." "Good," Taemin said, surprising everyone. "If they're bringing everything they have, it means they think we're worth everything they have." Kyung-ho pulled up stellar charts on the main display. "The 5th Fleet is already moving. They'll reach us in 6 days, maybe 7 if we run." "We're not running." "Taemin," Mi-jin said carefully, "I know our systems are impressive, but we're one ship against an entire fleet. Even with all our modifications, the odds are impossible." "The odds have been impossible since the day I traded junk for Da-un," he replied. "But we're still here." Da-un stood to her full height, her head nearly touching the cargo bay ceiling. "What do you need me to do?" Over the next 5 days, the Broken Wing underwent her most dramatic transformation yet. But this time, they weren't just modifying one ship. Word had spread through the underground networks about the coming battle. Other outcasts, other ships full of discarded people and impossible technology, began arriving at their coordinates. The first to arrive was the Second Chance, captained by a former hegemony officer named Elena, who had been court-martialed for refusing to bombard a refugee camp. Her ship was a converted medical frigate, bristling with defensive systems and carrying a crew of former military personnel who had chosen conscience over career. Next came the Junkyard Dog, a massive salvage vessel operated by a collective of AIs who had achieved consciousness and been abandoned by their creators. They brought raw materials and manufacturing capabilities that turned empty space into a construction zone. By the third day, 27 ships had gathered around the broken wing. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, mining vessels, research ships, all crewed by people the galaxy had thrown away, all carrying technology that shouldn't work but did. "This is insane," Kyung-ho muttered as he watched the impromptu fleet take shape on his sensors. "We're not a military force. We're a collection of misfits with jury-rigged equipment." "That's exactly why we might win," Taemin replied. "The plan they developed was typically impossible. Instead of fighting the Fifth Fleet ship to ship, they would turn space itself into a weapon. Dayun's resonance modulator, duplicated and distributed among the Allied vessels, would create a network of electromagnetic control points throughout the battle area. But that was just the beginning. Mi-jin had been studying the data Jae-sung provided about hegemony fleet protocols. "They fight like a machine," she explained. "Every ship has its place. Every movement is coordinated through central command. It makes them powerful but also predictable." "Predictable how?" Elena asked over the comm link. "They can't adapt quickly to chaos. Their strength comes from order and standardization, so we give them chaos." The Broken Wing herself underwent the most radical changes. Using materials and expertise from the Allied ships, she was rebuilt as something that had never existed before. Her hull split into 17 separate sections, each capable of independent operation but designed to work together like a distributed organism. Dayun coordinated the technical aspects, while Taemin handled the strategic planning. The other ships would spread out through the asteroid field where they had chosen to make their stand, each one hiding among the rocks with their improvised weapons and impossible technology. "Remember," Taemin broadcast to the fleet as they took their positions, "we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to show them something they've never seen before." The Fifth Fleet arrived exactly on schedule, dropping out of hyperspace, in perfect formation. Admiral Voss's flagship, the Inexorable, was a kilometer-long dreadnought capable of reducing planets to ash. The supporting vessels spread out around it like a metal constellation, their weapons aimed at the asteroid field, where the rebels waited. "Unknown vessels," Admiral Voss broadcast on all frequencies. "You are in violation of hegemony law. Surrender immediately and submit to boarding, or we will open fire." Taemin's response was transmitted from 17 different locations simultaneously. "Admiral Voss, this is Captain Taemin of the Broken Wing. We decline your generous offer. Then you have chosen death. All vessels open fire." The battle that followed became legend throughout the galaxy. The hegemony fleet opened with a coordinated barrage that should have vaporized everything in the asteroid field. Instead, their weapons struck deflector fields powered by gaming consoles and guided by smartphone apps. The improvised defenses held just long enough for the real counterattack to begin. Dayun's resonance modulators reached out across space, touching the hegemony ships with invisible fingers of electromagnetic force. Suddenly, the perfectly coordinated fleet found their navigation systems giving contradictory orders. Weapon systems locked onto friendly targets. Communication networks broadcast conflicting commands. But the true chaos began when the Broken Wing revealed her final secret. The 17 sections of her hull detached and spread out through the battle area, each one broadcasting fake sensor signatures and electronic ghosts. The hegemony fleet found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. "Impossible!" Admiral Voss screamed over the radio as his flagship's weapons kept missing targets that shouldn't exist. "These readings make no sense." "That's the point," Taemin replied from 7 different locations simultaneously. "You think in straight lines. We think in curves." The Allied ships emerged from hiding among the asteroids, their own impossible weapons adding to the confusion. A mining vessel used its ore processors to launch clouds of metallic chaff that jammed sensors for light years around. A passenger liner deployed its emergency evacuation pods as guided missiles, each one carrying an electromagnetic pulse generator. Even the research ships contributed, using their deep space communication arrays to hack directly into hegemony, computer networks and plant viruses written in programming languages that didn't officially exist. The turning point came when Daun achieved something that would be studied by military strategists for generations. Using the network of resonance modulators, she synchronized every electronic system in the battle area into a single, massive electromagnetic pulse that shut down every hegemony vessel simultaneously. For 10 minutes, the Fifth Fleet hung dead in space while their crews frantically tried to restart critical systems. In that time, the Allied ships moved among them like sharks among sleeping whales, attaching boarding pods and hacking devices to every major vessel. When the hegemony ships finally came back online, they found their own systems had been turned against them. Admiral Voss discovered that his flagship would only respond to orders transmitted from the broken wing. His weapons could only target what Taimin told them to target. Even his communication system had been modified to play old Earth music whenever he tried to call for reinforcements. "Surrender," Taimin broadcast to the helpless fleet. "Your ships are intact, your crews are unharmed, but your weapons belong to us now." The aftermath of the Battle of Haven's Edge, as historians would later call it, changed everything. The Fifth Fleet limped home with their impossible defeat broadcast on every news network in the galaxy. The hegemony's reputation for invincibility died that day, replaced by whispered stories about the human ship that could turn junk into miracles. More importantly, it proved that the galaxy's outcasts didn't have to stay hidden anymore. The broken wing and her allies became the nucleus of something new, a confederation of free ships that answered to no government, served no corporate masters, and welcomed anyone willing to see potential where others saw only worthlessness. "So, what now?" Daun asked as they watched the defeated hegemony fleet disappear into hyperspace. Taimin looked around at their impossible ship, at the crew of misfits who had become his family, at the fleet of former outcasts who now called themselves free. "Now we keep building," he said. "The galaxy is full of people who've been thrown away, full of technology that's been forgotten. Maybe it's time someone showed them what's really possible." Daun smiled, her green eyes bright with possibilities. "I like this plan. But next time, we will need bigger ships." "Next time," Taimin agreed, "we'll build a fleet that makes this one look like a toy. After all, there's a lot more junk out there waiting to become treasure."